Good evening and welcome to Metro Focus. I'm Jenna Flanagan. Two of New York's most powerful legislators are demanding a complete overhaul of the city's election system. In a damning opinion piece in the New York Post, New York City Council Speaker Corey Johnson and Mayor Bill de Blasio are calling for extensive reforms after broken machines, a shortage of voting booths, and hours-long lines led to hundreds of complaints pouring into the state attorney general's office. Speaker Corey Johnson went one step further in his demands, stating the executive director of the Board of Elections who oversees the vote should resign immediately. So I'm pleased to welcome Speaker Corey Johnson back to the program. Corey, so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so I think Election Day was summed up in a really great New Yorker cartoon where we see a bunch of people standing around and one says, "My God, can the MTA get any worse?" And the other person says, "This is a polling place."
That's a good cartoon.
It's a great cartoon. I thought that was really on point. But what were the problems that you were seeing? Because I was following you on Twitter, and you were real time explaining a lot of the problems that we were seeing on Election Day.
Well, I went and voted at my polling site at the LGBT Center in Greenwich Village around 11 o'clock in the morning, which is usually a slow time. It's after the morning rush and before the evening rush. You usually get in and out. When I arrived, there were lines out the door. There are 4 scanning machines. 3 of them are broken down. People were being instructed to go outside with their ballots. So their ballots would then get wet. Then they'd come in, put them in the machine, and it would jam the machine. This was happening in all 5 boroughs. It was happening at hundreds of polling sites across the city. And when the executive director of the Board of Elections was asked about the significant problems on Election Day, he said, "We had heavy turnout and it rained. We did the best we could," which is not an acceptable answer given what we saw on Election Day. So we need a bunch of things. We need the state legislature, which I'm hopeful they'll do. We need them to adopt early voting, no excuse absentee voting, same-day registration, all of these things that make it easier to vote and will hopefully not have a big of crush of voters on Election Day itself, but people can vote leading up to it. And then I think we need to professionalize the staff at the Board of Elections. There's a proposal in Albany to have the executive director be appointed and hired in a professional manner and to have hiring and firing authority on their own, which doesn't currently exist. So those are some of the things that we need. But what happened last Tuesday on Election Day was totally unacceptable. New Yorkers felt that way, and it's time for radical change.
Is this something where, because everything that you were talking about, of course, is going to happen at the Albany level. So is this something with the new state legislature that we're going to see getting sworn in January that you feel confident that all, if not maybe most of these changes could happen?
I feel pretty confident. You know, the voting reform stuff we're talking about, no excuse absentee, early voting, same-day registration, these are things that are very popular, and it's not a partisan issue. This is about making voting easier for everyone, not one political party. So in the early conversations since the results came in last week, people have been talking about there being pretty broad consensus on adopting these things. The governor supports it. The Assembly has passed these bills in previous legislative sessions, and the new Democratic majority in the state Senate supports it. So I think we'll see action on it this upcoming legislative session.
All right, so in this damning op-ed that appeared in the New York Post, why was it so important that the head of the Board of Elections stepped down to you?
Well, Election Day sadly has turned into Groundhog Day in New York City. Every single election day, whether it be the June congressional primaries or the September primaries or the November general election, you see the same thing over and over again. You see broken machines, long lines, and incompetence at polling sites across the city. So I thought that on Election Day, when the executive director said that the reason why we're having these problems is because of heavy turnout and rain, to me that showed a total tin ear on the problems that New Yorkers are facing, and that's why I think that it's time for us to have new leadership there.
All right, so I did want to point out that in your opinion piece, you mentioned that the city offered $20 million in new funding to help bolster voter outreach, but the board refused the money. Do you have any idea why that happened?
Well, the mayor put an offer on the table 2 years ago to the Board of Elections saying, we'll give you an additional $20 million if you agree to certain reforms, if you agree to have more translators at polling sites, if you agree to a variety of other measures to make it easier to vote and to make sure that the preparation and planning was done properly. They turned that down, which now in hindsight shows what a mistake it was. And that's why I think we need some radical reform. Structurally, the Board of Elections needs to change, and there are bills in Albany to address that, which I'm hopeful will get a hearing and hopefully pass this upcoming session.
Are there any other solutions that you're proposing or that you could see might also help alleviate some of the stress that we were seeing on New Yorkers, like you said, in all 5 boroughs?
Well, you know, most states across the country, as we saw in the lead up to these important midterm elections, have early voting for weeks before actual election day itself. So they have polling sites that are open on weeknights and on weekends so that folks can actually go and vote early. If we had that in New York City, the issues on election day, I think, would be significantly less than what we saw because there wouldn't be as many people coming on election day itself. People will be voting ahead of time. I think that's one of the biggest things we can do. We should also have no excuse absentee voting, same-day registration. These are things that will make it easier all around. It is hard when you see high turnout, and we want high turnout, for these polling sites to handle all of the registered voters on one single day, which is why we need to give many opportunities for people to vote, not just on that one day.
Now, we're talking about this in November of 2018, and of course, we all know there's going to be another huge election in 2020, presidential election. Mm-hmm. And so my question is, do you think that these are the kind of reforms and changes that can be made in time, and if they're not, would it deter people from going to the polls?
Well, I hope it doesn't deter people because we want everyone to vote. We want every single person who's eligible, who's registered, who wants to get registered. We want to make sure it's easy to vote. But there are going to be some local elections in 2019 in New York City. So if the state legislature adopted some of these reforms, we would have basically a test run. We would have the opportunity in 2019 to see what's working and what's not working, how it's implemented, and there'll be enough time in preparation for the 2020 presidential primary in New York, the 2020 regular primaries that happen, and the November presidential primary and general election. So there'll be many opportunities before that November election 2 years from now to make sure that we're getting it right.
Now, of course, I started our interview with a sort of joke comparing the Board of Elections to the MTA, but I do want to turn to the MTA before I let you go and ask, we just saw the MTA chairman, Joe Lhota, step down. First of all, what are your thoughts on his decision, the timing, and where does that leave this department?
Well, Joe Lhota, I think, has served the city well. He did a very good job after Sandy hit in getting the MTA up and running in a record amount of time after a horrific storm that killed many New Yorkers and that shut the city down for a period of time. And when the governor asked him to come back, I think there was a lot of hope, and the MTA was experiencing a crisis, which we're still seeing. I think one of the best decisions that Joe Lhota made was hiring Andy Byford, the new president of New York City Transit, who's done a great job, has put forward the Fast Forward plan to save and rescue the MTA for the next 10 years. So I'm really grateful for Joe Lhota's service, and I'm hopeful that because he decided to hire someone of the caliber of Andy Byford, we're going to have a lot to build on, and it's going to be one of the big issues coming up in Albany.
Well, we'll see what happens when the new legislature is sworn in January. But Corey Johnson, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me.